How you going, mate?
Good, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Very good, mate. The coffees are kicking in, so I'm ready to rumble. First, before we start, where have we caught you today?
Just at home in between sessions. So had a pretty easy one this morning, and heading in for probably a pretty tough one this afternoon. So got me at a good time. Post nap, so a lot of energy.
Mate, you mentioned before we started this that you got to go home though through COVID, so that must have been a nice little silver lining. You got to spend some time with the family.
Yeah. Obviously, always appreciate family time. Don't get much of it now that I'm living over in Oz. It's maybe a couple of times a year if I'm lucky to get back home and see everyone. So to spend 4 weeks just not having to worry about training or anything was pretty awesome. Even the sisters made an appearance. They're normally down south, and they got to come back up as well. So it was all of us up together. So it was pretty awesome.
Now, mate, I know you live and train on the Gold Coast at Bond. Talk to me about how that came about and what brought you over.
Yeah, so it was actually before Comm Games in 2018. I wanted to initially just go over there and like kind of acclimatize myself and see how I would go with training over there, because obviously we knew that we'd be racing not in the peak of summer, but towards the back end of summer. So we knew it was going to be warm. So I came over for about a month and was training with Rich and some of the guys who are still there now. And we were training there and pretty much got a taste of it and figured I really kind of liked the group. I liked how I was pushing myself. When I was back in NZ, I loved training as well, but I just had no one that I was kind of trying to stay in front of everyone and didn't really have anyone to chase. So I really liked having some of the boys around me that were just really pushing me and bringing out the best of myself. And then so afterwards, I made the really difficult decision of saying to myself that I thought that was what was best for my progression as an athlete. And yeah, ended up moving over.
Mate, did you play any other sports growing up? Obviously, being in New Zealand, we've got rugby, cricket.
Yeah, I think everyone gets forced into rugby when you're a Kiwi kid.
Yeah.
So I played that for a while. I really enjoyed it. It's a tough game though, especially when you're a scrawny little kid and you're playing on the field with a few bigger boys. And then on top of that, I played water polo for quite a few years, but ended up dropping that just because it was ruining my stroke, basically.
Yeah.
But really, really enjoyed that. It was a fun sport. Did basketball for a while. I'm 6'7", so that was kind of inevitable that I'd get asked to kind of do that. And I think that's all. So yeah, a few different sports, but I think swimming, as you know, it's quite a time commitment. So that kind of took over, and that became the primary thing. I think after I kind of made nationals in 2016 and won my first national medal.
What drew you towards swimming as a young fella?
Probably mum. I think she kind of said to all of us kids that we had to be able to beat her in a swimming race to be able to stop, just because New Zealand, we've got such high drowning stats.
Yeah.
And we were often going down to the beach at our local beaches, Whangamata, or we've got a beach house down there, and she just wanted everyone to be competent in the water so that she kind of knew that she could leave us and not be too worried about it. But yeah, she wasn't too much of a challenge. Managed to beat her probably by the age of 10. and then after that was kind of just the environment that I created, I guess, or that was created with a few of the teammates that I was with. And, it just became enjoyable to turn up to training and as enjoyable as swimming can be. So yeah, it was good fun. So I just slowly enjoyed it and then got to the point where I got kind of good at it. So kept going.
What about heroes and idols, mate, growing up? Did you have anyone that you looked up to?
I mean, you always look at the greats. Obviously you've got Phelps and guys like that, which is just pretty awesome. And then you'd go to nationals and things like that and watch them. Not really anyone that really stands out for me. Yeah, as a pure idol, just I guess Dad would be the cliche one. He was always working really hard, and so I appreciated his work ethic and wanted to kind of follow in those footsteps, but in a different path in a way.
In terms of competition and getting a little bit more competitive, would you say it was around that 2015 year that you sort of really started to switch on?
Yeah. Sorry, it was 2000. It was when I was 16. So gosh, I can't do maths right now. But when I was 16 was my first Open Nationals, because the year before I was 2 years before that I didn't even make Div 2, which is, for anyone in New Zealand will know, that's not really much of an achievement. I mean, it's a significant achievement, but compared to making nationals, and then so I didn't make Div 2, made Div 2, and then made my first ever national team and managed to somehow win a gold medal as well. One of my who would then become teammates actually false started in the 53, which got me the win. So that was Corey Main, if you're listening. I'll still remember that.
Matt, as a
But yeah,
youngster, did you struggle with anything? Maybe it might have been, nerves, nutrition, sessions and making sure you're getting them all done, prehab, anything like that?
yeah, I think, well, for me, we lived quite far away from central Auckland. So I lived in a place called Drury, which is probably about 40 minutes from the closest place that I ended up training. And so for me, like traveling was always a big thing. Like it was a big time commitment, and obviously you can't get your license or restricted license, which is basically when you're allowed to drive by yourself until you're, I think I was 16 when I got it, and up until then, you're relying on your parents to get you to and from training, which is a huge commitment for them. And then obviously being tall, I think, meant that I didn't gain any muscle for quite a while. And that also was a bit of a hindrance. So you'd have like a lot of guys who were shorter than me and like a bit stockier. And so for my events in the 50 and the 100, you're required to be probably a bit more powerful than say a distance swimmer. And so for those guys that obviously see a lot more of an improvement as they kind of built muscle. And it was probably not till I was about 18, 19 that I started to put on a bit of weight and get a bit of power. So, which was probably a good thing in terms of my back, because I probably would have had a back injury if I'd put on some weight too early.
Mate, 2015, as I just mentioned before, and I noted it was a pretty good year for you. I think you won both long course and short course, national titles, and I think you broke some records in the process there. And then you went and competed in the university games in Gwangju, and you did pretty well over there. Why do you think it was such a big year for you? Where did those results come from, do you think?
I think challenging myself, my coach as well, Yana. She was an awesome part of my success and my me just kind of getting better and better. She put a lot of time into me, went above and beyond for trying to help me out and just facilitating me doing what I was doing. I think she also had a lot of faith in me, and I also put a lot of faith in her. I think we had quite a good coach to athlete relationship. She would always challenge me as well, and so would kind of bring that out of myself. I've obviously got that internal motivation that I think all swimmers need to have to kind of turn up to training and put in the work, but she would always bring out the best in that, which I really appreciated. And I think once you get to that point where you can put enough trust into a coach and it's reciprocated, that you create that quite powerful relationship that drives the success. So I think I owe a lot to her. And then obviously I think I was starting to get on top of nutrition and understanding things like that. And I actually from 2012 I was studying physio full time as well, and so that was a massive time commitment. And I actually ended up pulling out after doing 2 years of that. And once I pulled out of that, I had a lot more time on my hand for a bit of recovery as well and things like that. And I think that just allowed me to kind of be more present in the sessions that I was in and just bring 100% to every session. And once I was I think I did a year or 6 months of just complete swimming and put uni on hold for a bit before moving to an online study. And I think that just kind of put a bit of pressure on me that I needed to be this is what you've chosen to do and you're going to do it well. And I think that's kind of where I saw a dramatic increase. I think in that season, I dropped almost a second and a half in the 100 free. So it was obviously the right decision considering that's what I really wanted to do.
Mate, definitely it had a great effect, because the following year in 2016 at the New Zealand National Champs, you won the 50 free, the 50 back, but you missed qualifying for Rio by 4/100ths of a second. One example of how cruel our sport can be sometimes. Mate, how did you handle, missing out on your first Olympic team?
It was obviously pretty rough, but I think I kind of took it quite well, weirdly enough, because I think at the time it wasn't a huge expectation of mine. If that doesn't sound too bad, in terms of the plan that we'd set out, we'd set out what we wanted to achieve, and obviously Rio was. I'm sorry, what was it? 2016. Yeah, sorry, it was Rio.
Yeah.
That was a goal. It was on the path, but it was there as the precursor to Tokyo. So it was the stepping stone. But it had kind of come out of nowhere because of this whole 2015 was a big step up for me.
Yeah.
So when I dropped the time in the morning, I was actually really surprised. at what had happened at the time that I'd kind of produced, but I'd also got the New Zealand record, which was huge for me.
Mm.
And then got because I had the heat swim and then the finals. Obviously, had another chance to do it, and unfortunately went a bit slower. But I think I took it quite well, but obviously used it as motivation to kind of to drive me for the next year. And then the next year, I missed out in the heats by 0.01 to make the team to Budapest in 2017, and then managed to make the team in the finals. So I felt like I redeemed myself a little bit.
Mate, in terms of that next 4 years, well, it'll end up being 5 years by the time we get around to Tokyo next year. But how motivating was missing the team in 2016 in terms of your plan moving forward?
It was definitely a huge like motivation, and I kind of felt like I'd been a bit cheated in terms of that. And then once sorry, I'm losing my headphones.
Yeah,
I
it's all
just put
good.
one to charge. It was so it was a big motivation, and I think, but it also showed me that I had what it took to kind of to make the teams and kind of succeed in that sense. But then also, as we discussed beforehand, just the whole second half of that 2016 year, where I went on to do quite well in the short course events as well, and then make the world short course team, I think was a big motivator, because if I'd had a whole year off competing, that would have been pretty tough.
Mm.
So
yeah, mate, talk to me about that. The record-breaking 47.3 you went at the FINA Arena World Cup in Hong Kong. Shout out to Arena, a great sponsor of the show. No doubt you were flying there, mate. How much of this was you just feeling good, racing well, or how much of this was still a little bit of that missing out on the Rio team, adding a bit of fuel in the belly to go faster and not leave anything to chance?
Yeah, I think like that's obviously going to be a massive driver for like the rest of my career as an athlete. Just missing out on that team, and it was obviously in the back of my head. But I think I'd also come to the point where short course is a little bit less stress on the little bit less on the line in terms of results and stuff like that, and that allowed me to relax a bit more and just enjoy racing again. Because obviously coming off the back of all of the stress of missing out and everything like that, it was quite a lot. And then to just go and race and just have a bit of fun, race internationally, and like be up against these world class athletes for pretty much the first time for me, because I hadn't really raced and you're seeing all these big names in the pool next to you. It was a lot of fun, and I think that whole relaxed, enjoyable atmosphere was what allowed me to perform, as well as the motivation to kind of prove myself as well.
Mate, as we just touched on there, you love your short course. That's evident in looking through your stats and your career, which I did yesterday and the day before. What do you enjoy most about it? Is it the fact that, there's not a lot of pressure on it in terms of the results and qualifying for teams, stuff like that? Is it that you're 8'5" and that you do 2 strokes and you're already at the other end, so it makes it a bit easier? What do you enjoy most about it?
Probably as bad as it sounds, the fact that it doesn't hurt as much as long course racing. It's and I just feel like I can kind of push myself to different races as well. Like the 200, I'm a lot more comfortable in racing at short course rather than long course. So you can afford to kind of burn yourself a little bit harder in the first half of the race and try to hold on best you can. So for some reason, I've just got a bit more confidence in going into a short course race. That's just and as I said, like I find it more enjoyable. But yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, there's something about looking down a 50-meter pool and knowing that for 100 you've got to get down there and come back. That's it's pretty grueling. But short course is just, I don't know, I've had a lot of good experiences racing, and just the experiences around short course racing have been a lot of fun, especially those World Cup trips. So they're awesome.
Mate, we know obviously you enjoy it, but obviously you've got to be good at certain things in terms of your skill work and your underwater work to be, very successful at short course racing, and 47.3 is a super slick time. So how much underwater and skills work do you do in training?
With Rich, we do quite a bit. When I was back at HBK, we had quite a shallow pool, which kind of made it quite hard. Like we were training in like 1.5 meters of water, 1.2 at one end, I think it is. So that was quite, like, we'd still do a lot, but it was difficult. So my underwaters are actually quite shocking. I mean, they're adequate, but they're definitely not a strength. My swim speed's probably my biggest strength. To 15, I'm okay, but a lot of that's momentum off the blocks. But yeah, the underwater's actually recently been a big working of mine through this last 8 weeks that we've been been back in the water. Me and a teammate of mine, Alex, I've been trying to ask him for some tips lately on that, because his are incredible. So it's good that I've got someone that I can kind of compare to that's in the squad, and he can give me some pointers, and we can do some like in-session racing and stuff like that.
Mate, in terms of racing, do you have any pre-race rituals? I know in talking to a lot of athletes at the moment, they'll tell me that they don't, because the sports psychologist says to not have them because it's not a good thing. If things don't go right, then it throws your whole head out. But do you have any things that you need to do? Might even be the night before racing.
Yeah, I've got a few that I'll actually, funny to bring a sports psych up enough. I've got a sports psych, Dave Neath, who I've been working with for, well, since 2016, really, 2015. And he's set me up with a few rituals, not so much that are a necessity, but a few things like centering and things like that just help calm the nerves and kind of center the energy that you've got. But I'm kind of the same. Like, I'll never have an exact warm up that I'll do. I've never got like an exact ritual that I'll follow, just because if, I don't know, for some reason like schedule's running early or something and I can't exactly fit in everything that I have to do for warm up, I don't all of a sudden think in the back of my mind, oh, I have to do that. Like, if I haven't done it, I'm going to have a bad race, kind of thing. That's kind of how I've set myself up. I don't know if that's normal or weird, but that's just, so something that I've done that means that it's one other thing that's not going to hinder me during a race. Like, I know that if I've been in the water and I've done, at least 800 meters, that I'll be feeling fine and I'm ready to race.
Mate, what about pre-race playlists? What music do you listen to before you head out?
Normally some sort of hip hop or R&B rap kind of thing. J. Cole's one of my go-to artists, so he's probably my most listened to.
Okay.
But either that or some sort of heavy rock to kind of, if I'm feeling really flat, have a double shot of coffee and some rock and chuck that on and get the head bouncing, get ready to race. Some noise cancelling headphones do well.
Mate, although you're a Kiwi, 2018 Comm Games was essentially a home games for you because you'd spent a couple of years, or you'd spent a bit of time training there. How excited were you to race on the Gold Coast where you train, and what was the atmosphere like?
Well, for me at the time, I actually wasn't training there quite yet, but obviously I'd been there for a month beforehand. Comm Games was probably the best couple of weeks of my life. Honestly, it was such a fun meet. I think we were lucky enough to come over as a staging camp, so we were up in Noosa for about a week and a half beforehand. And the team, the guys that we were with, just got along super well. Like, we were with the relay team plus Brad Ashby, and then we were grouped up with the para guys, a few of the para guys as well. And all of us that were there just got like glued straight away, had an awesome time. And I think just everyone's headspace was in like the perfect place for that meet. And that just led up to some awesome racing. Once we got into the village, you get around the team and everything like that. And New Zealand team is, I think, one of the best in the world. Like, it's just no one's above anyone else. You've got people there that it's like their fourth or fifth Commonwealth Games. You've got, veterans, Olympic gold medalists and stuff like that, but they're always say hi. No one's kind of above anyone. So just that was the first kind of proper village experience that I'd had with multi-sports. Like, I'd done aquatics villages and things like that, but and then I guess I did World Uni Games, but in terms of having like a full strength New Zealand team there, and you're seeing all these people around, and it was an awesome experience. And just, as you said, the home crowds, like when we were racing, if there was no Aussie in the race, like, you were getting all the cheer from the Aussie crowd as well. So it was pretty awesome. I think it was the 50 fly one, either my heat or my semi-final. There was no Aussies in my heat, and the noise from the crowd was just ridiculous. Like, it was a 10,000 person outdoor stadium, and it was incredible.
Mate, it always sounds good on a nice, warm, sunny day, the outdoor pool. But did you have to race on any days where it wasn't so nice?
There was definitely a night. It was either the 100 free night or the 4x1 free relay. It was raining one night, and I remember. I distinctly remember. I think it was Lewis's 400 IN night actually as well. Was raining. The night that he won the medal. But there was definitely a few days, and I think the worst was actually the 100 free relay when we were doing our heat. It was like 11:30 in the middle of the day on the Gold Coast, and it was like 40 degrees inside the arena because the arena's all there. It blocks off all the wind.
Yeah.
And so I remember jumping on the blocks and actually having to jump back down and splash water on the blocks because you couldn't stand
It's
on it. It
too
was so
hot.
hot.
Yeah.
so so yeah, it was there was definitely some extremes. You know, you had that, and then at night it'd be freezing cold, and you'd be walking out like full, like I think I had like jumper on, jacket on, full tracksuit. So it's yeah, there was definitely some variance, but racing in an outdoor pool was awesome.
Mate, talk to me about your coach, Richard Scarce. What's he like as a coach, and how's he helped take your career to the next level?
Rich is awesome. He's he's the guy you want at 5 o'clock in the morning because he just keeps you kind of motivated. He'll be yelling at you from the side. Some mornings you definitely don't want it. There's definitely some mornings where it's like, all right, Rich, you can settle down now.
Yeah.
We're doing easy 400. He's telling us ways that we can go faster and things like that. But he brings so much energy to the pool and really brings out the best in all of us as a group, I think. He's never afraid to kind of, if you're going a bit slow, he'll call you out for it. He'll, ask if everything's all good. But at the same time, if he thinks he can help out with getting you go faster in a session, or if he thinks you're not doing your best you can, he's not afraid to let you know it. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, he's just kind of, obviously I'm international, and he's never once kind of, given me less attention than another one in the squad. So he just treats me like one of the boys. So he's been awesome, and yeah, just challenging myself and kind of bringing the best out of me as an athlete.
Do you cop any stick within the squad for being a Kiwi?
Oh, every day, every day. But no, that's all right. It's all part of the banter. It's good fun.
Because
Yeah,
I've been reliably told, mate, by your training mate Alex Graham, who I've had on the podcast, so I keep in touch with, and sent him a text last night. Is there any questions that I can ask Dan on the podcast? And he said that you seem to be always grumpy. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, all right. I'll send you a video of him on Monday mornings, and we can see who the grumpy one is.
Oh.
Yeah, no, we get along well. We've got a good squad at the moment. Everyone's on a very level playing field, and everyone wants everyone to perform well. So I mean, been lucky enough to be back in the water for 8 weeks, and I reckon spirits are real high at the moment, which is good considering we've got nothing that's building up to specifically anything at the moment. So tough times, and I think you're doing really well.
Mate, what's it like living with fellow NZ teammate Matt Stanley? Has that helped in terms of living away from home?
Yeah, Matt's awesome, and it's obviously I find it really good because we're like we're competitive against each other. So we kind of give each other a bit of stick and like, oh yeah, like how's training going, kind of like throwing a bit of chat in there about one-upping each other and things like that. But he's awesome. He's really good fun. We get along really well. A lot of like things in common in terms of like surfing and things like that. He's a real good cook, so he keeps me on the healthy side of eating, so that's always good.
What's his specialties?
For specialties, honestly, a lot of things. Slow cooked pork or lamb are pretty awesome.
Nice.
He does really well. I'd say those are his best dishes. Or I think Nick's favorite is his nachos.
Nachos
So,
are good.
Yeah. So, but he does a lot of good dishes, which is good fun.
What about yourself though? When you pitch in, what do you cook?
Oh, I made a pretty good salmon linguine last night, but that was the first time I've cooked in a while. Yeah, that, or I think my specialty would be the boys like my mushroom sauce, for like a creamy mushroom sauce for steaks.
Yeah, for steaks, very nice.
Yeah, so
get me ready for lunch, mate. You're talking all this food stuff. Talk to me about last year's world champs in Gwangju. The meet as a whole had a lot going on, controversies, world records, and it was a pretty quick meet, all in all, with some of the racing we saw. What about for yourself personally? How did you look back on that?
Yeah, I went in with it kind of really focused on that 200 free. I've been doing a lot of different training to kind of prepare myself for that. It was also the first time for us that we'd done, because we did trials in June and then had a month off, not a month off, sorry, a month of preparation before racing again, and I think it was early August, was it, for Worlds. So it was quite awesome to kind of get or just see how the body would react to that. I found it actually quite good. I raced well at trials. I PB'd the 200 free, and then was able to pretty much reciprocate that time in the 4x2 relay. obviously you've got the relay start, so I was a little bit faster than what my individual time was, and it was it roughly translated to what I'd done at trial. So to kind of back it up straight away was pretty awesome for me. I was a little bit disappointed, I think, with my 100 free individual swim. I kind of wanted it to be a bit faster than that, and like given how I'd been training, I think I probably should have been a bit faster than that. But it's just difficult to get up in the morning, which is just something that I'm normally all right at getting up and like doing a good time in the morning, because that's been a big working of mine to try and perform in the morning and just make the final. So I was a little bit disappointed with that, but it was an awesome meet. The crowd was pretty insane. Once again, like the village and stuff was pretty cool. The food was it was a lot of kimchi. So, but no, it was a really cool meet. And then obviously, like you said, like there was incredible swimming going on. So to be able to witness that live was pretty incredible. Obviously, watched my teammate become a world champion in the 4x2 relay. So that was incredible to watch as well. So that was a pretty awesome end to the meet. But yeah, overall, it was an awesome experience.
What do you get up to away from the pool, mate? When you're not training and we're not going up and down the black line, what do you like to do away from the pool to get your mind off it all?
At the moment, I've been trying to surf quite a bit. Now that leading up to a meet and stuff, I'll try and steer clear of it, just because I feel like it's a risky sport for me because I'm not incredible.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take a board to the head halfway through and then miss out on a few sessions.
Yeah.
But and then aside from that, I've been walking quite a bit as well, listening to podcasts like we were talking earlier.
Yeah.
Try and get a few of those in.
Have you listened to any of Off the Blocks?
Yeah, I have listened to a couple. I had to listen to Alex's to kind of give them stick about it.
You'd be surprised how many people say no to that. I always ask them off air before we start. I always ask, and a few people go, "Oh no, I just haven't had a chance." I say, "Okay, fair enough." So good save there.
Yeah,
well
I've got a bit of time on my hands, so it's all right. Especially at the moment with lockdown and everything, it's been quite a good little thing to listen to.
Yeah.
And then I'm also studying a business degree part time as well, so that kind of keeps me entertained as well. And that's online through Massey University in New Zealand. So it's a correspondence degree.
How do you find the balance with that? So obviously elite training takes up a lot of time. If we're not in the pool, you're in the gym. And if you're not in the gym, you're stretching, and there's always prehab, rehab. There's a lot of stuff that goes into you guys being at your very best. How do you find the balance with that? And then doing, the training side of it, online training, any studies?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to be doing a part-time degree, so it's actually only 2 papers per semester, which is quite manageable. And now that it's kind of that, instead of when I was doing physio and that was full-time study, which was incredibly hard to maintain at the same time as swimming. But doing the part-time, it's actually quite nice to kind of have something that you've got away from the pool where you can just kind of mentally reset, and it's like it's something completely different, and otherwise you're just constantly stressing over swimming because that's the only thing that you're really working towards. So it's kind of it's nice to just be able to kind of reset, shift your focus to something else. And I remember studying when we were at Comm Games. Actually, we were at the staging camp in Noosa, and just I had an assignment due at the time, and at the time I was like, it's a hindrance. I've got to get this done. But at the same time, it's like if you have a bad session, you just switch to study mode, and you can just kind of work on that and churn some stuff out, and that can kind of just be your escape, and you can take your mind off it for a bit. So it definitely has its times where it's like tough, like when you're coming into exam period. Last year we had exams and trials were on the same week. So I had to get like exemptions and stuff, and that was obviously a little bit stressful, but it's pretty manageable. Hannah McLean, who's been set up as our life advisor, is awesome with helping us deal with that sort of stuff, and takes a lot of the stress off. So yeah, we get helped out quite a bit.
Very nice.
In that sense, because they really do try and encourage that study.
Mate, when we redo this chat in say 2 to 3 years time, what accomplishments would you like me to be adding to that intro? And obviously already it's a pretty good one, national record holder, world champs. You've been to Commonwealth Games, but what would you like me to be adding at the top there?
I think obviously the big driver for me at the moment is making that Olympic team, which was supposed to be this year, but next year now. That's my main motivator at the moment. So that, and then my goal is, so I've only done 2 years of my physio degree, and I really want to go back and finish that off because it's something that really interests me. Obviously being an athlete and things like that, The musculoskeletal side really interests me. So if I can finish that off in the next few years, would be pretty awesome. But that'll obviously mean that swimming will have to take a back seat for a while. So not necessarily stop swimming, but maybe focus on the 50 where I can do a bit more training in the gym and not so much of a commitment in the pool.
Now, mate,
So,
I'm talking to your housemate tomorrow, Matt Stanley. Have you got any questions for him? Have you got a question for me to pass on tomorrow for him?
You don't. I'll send you one later.
Okay,
it might not be appropriate for the chat.
All right, you send it to me. I'll make it PG and I'll bring it up tomorrow.
Yeah. No. I wouldn't want to hang out to dry.
All right, too easy, mate. Now, listen, I think that's a perfect chance to wrap it up. I firstly want to thank you for agreeing to come on. I know you guys are, getting back into normal training now, so I do appreciate you taking the time to come on and have a chat. And I hope a lot of listeners, both New Zealand and Australians, get behind you and the New Zealand team after hearing this. And obviously, you guys are doing phenomenal work at the moment, and hopefully we can stay in touch and maybe get you back on next year, mate, in the lead up to the trials for another chat. But until then, thank you very much for coming on Off the Block Swimming podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks heaps for having me, Robbie. Appreciate it. Hope you have a good one.
You too, buddy. Today's episode of Off the Block Swimming podcast is proudly brought to you by Arena Australia and Arena NZ.